Well, I was glad to have the opportunity of meeting the Minister. There were a number of issues in particular that we discussed. First, in relation to the Digital Security Act. As is well known, the European Union has been concerned about the operation of the Digital Security Act and the very large number of cases that have been taken by individuals against journalists and people who have been using social media. The Minister confirmed to me that he will be moving legislation shortly to amend the Digital Security Act. He has shared with me the broad direction of some of the amendments. Of course, we have to wait until the legislation is published before we can examine those in detail. The European Union has already made a submission to the Minister of amendments that we would like to see to the legislation, and some suggestions and some approaches that might be taken based on our own experience. So I want to first of all welcome the fact that the Digital Security Act is to be amended, and we will await the publication of the Act before commenting on the detail of it. We also talked about the anti-discrimination legislation, which is before the Parliament, and the progression of that, and that is something that we would encourage. We talked about the Data Protection Act, although I acknowledge that it is not the Minister's department, is not the lead department in relation to that legislation. And we had a broad discussion about the way in which the human rights are a central part of the relationship between the European Union and Bangladesh, and in particular the economic relationship between the European Union and Bangladesh, and the changing economic context in which that is taking place, where increasingly we are seeing that consumers are exercising more individual discretion in relation to the human rights track record of companies and countries, and also investors are more increasingly interested in the human rights environment in which they are investing. So I'd like to thank the Minister for the meeting, and obviously...
We talked about labour rights too.
Labour rights, yes indeed, we did talk about labour rights. It's a central issue, particularly in relation to the in relation to the trade preferences that we have. We talked in particular about trade union organisation. The Minister has explained to me the reduction in the threshold for the formation of trade unions in individual employments. We discussed how that works, and also in relation to individual rights about joining a trade union. So they were the main issues, I think, that we discussed.
Any discussion about the next election?
We touched on the elections, but I'm conscious that I'm conscious that we've just had an election exploratory mission, which has been in the country for more than 2 weeks, which has talked with many people who have functions in relation to the elections. They are currently preparing their report. That report will go to the High Representative Joseph Borrell, who will then make a decision as to whether or not to deploy an election observation mission. And I don't want to either preempt or predict whatever decision is made in that regard.
Thank you.